This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time!
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah!
I finished these fights.
Give me a hell yeah!
Top Rope Nation.
Learn to love it. It's the best thing going today.
What is up, Top Rope Nation? Episode 192. We're here to talk some Royal Rumble history with you tonight. It's Ryan Drosty of comicbook.com, joined by Kyle Ross and Justin Joint. Justin Joint, you're making your first appearance of 2021 on the podcast. You weren't with us last week. Week before, we took the week off. So welcome to 2021's version of Top Rope Nation, Justin. Damn glad to have you back.
Yay, good to be here and listen to last week's show. You guys did a fantastic job.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
I mean, not as good as, when I'm here, but still pretty good.
It could have been better. It was all right. You got
We
a
call
fresh
it in the
cut.
ring.
You got a fresh cut, as I see on our video stream right now, looking good.
Yes,
ready
sir.
to go.
First haircut since July. Previous to that was a year ago. Trying to do my part,
Yeah. Got a nice Brody Lee tribute shirt on as well.
Oh, yeah. I bought the, no offense to the AEW Brody merch, but just not a fan of it. But I did want to get something. And so I got the EC3 version that he put out that the proceeds go to the family still. So
Awesome.
happy about that. I think it's easily the best new Brody shirt out there, followed by that. I think it's the John Huber Forever.
Yeah, that the hockey shirt company made. I can't remember what it's called
that
offhand.
That one's pretty good.
Yeah. Very nice. Kyle.
EC3, who is morphing into Kurgan every day.
Yes.
Little more and more.
That's awesome. Kyle, how you doing, man? You got quite the production going on the video stream here. You've got some neon lights flashing on your ceiling. He's ready to go. You're pumped for this show.
I also have not gotten a haircut in a long time, in case you can't tell. Also looks like I'm being attacked from outer space on this screen. I don't know what's going on with that.
Go on to our YouTube page. It's youtube.com/topropenation. As you scroll through our shows from the last several years, you will see Kyle's hair change quite a bit, varying lengths of those beautiful blonde curls, Kyle. So I've noticed over the years.
Should put it on the line or something. Hair versus hair match against somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, like I said at the top of the show, we're going to talk a little Royal Rumble history. Obviously, we've got the WWE's Royal Rumble coming up here in a little bit over a week. So we thought, obviously, if you listen to this show, we love talking classic pro wrestling. And this is kind of a good way to set the stage for a show we're going to be doing next week when we put out a new edition of Top Rope Nation Classics, our Patreon bonus show. So if you want to support the show and hear those bonus shows, head on over to patreon.com/topropenation. The link is in the description of the podcast or the video if you're here on YouTube. It's going to be a lot of fun. So if you enjoy this show, you'll probably enjoy that one. And Kyle, you put the agenda together for us tonight. We've got some great, I think, historical questions to look at as far as the best Rumbles, the best non-Royal Rumble matches at the pay-per-view titled the Royal Rumble. We're going to be talking about some Rumble winners that we may have changed if we could go back in time, and a few other things as well. So before we dive into it, I do want to say, of course, that we're brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcasting Network. Check out bluewirepods.com for all of your podcasting needs. And if you're listening on one of the podcasting platforms, whether that is Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, wherever you get podcasts, please hit that subscribe button. Leave us a 5-star rating. We would appreciate it very much. A written review with your Twitter or Instagram username, and I'll contact you, and I'll send you a free Top Rope Nation sticker in the mail. Free merch. All you got to do is leave us a nice written review on Apple Podcasts. And like I said, we are on YouTube as well. All of our shows go up on youtube.com. Subscribe to the channel, youtube.com/topropenation. We will be live after next weekend's Royal Rumble, breaking the show down, a live post show. Would love to have you join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. Subscribe to the channel so you don't forget and you don't miss it. So, Kyle, would you like to introduce our first question of the night?
Okay, sure. So, when breaking down, the history of the Royal Rumble, Justin Joint came up with a lot of these, actually. And I just kind of, took a lot of his legwork and passed it off as my own, quite frankly, first of all, which is always
Believe we call that the podcast.
Yes. Yeah.
Justin is the real brains behind this operation.
Yes. But, but hey, I put the pen to the paper, so I'll take the credit. The good ones borrow, the great ones steal, or something like that. Anyway, you think about the Royal Rumble. I think most people, and I'd be interested if you two would agree, I hope not, otherwise this might be an awkward first question we're going to do. 1992, the best Royal Rumble ever, I think by leaps and bounds. I do not believe it is close. I think one of the more substantial gaps, if you were to rank all the Rumbles, actually exists between 92 and whatever you think number 2 is. Would you guys concur with that assessment?
I would. Justin?
Yeah, I'd say so.
I think the thing about it that's so great is you have so many different elements that make that match great. It's a title match. You have Ric Flair, just one of the great Rumble performances of all time. You've got the great Flair promo afterwards. I mean, in every sense of the word, it's the total package, right?
It's the best. Go ahead, Justin.
I was just going to say it has one flaw, and that's that Flair didn't win at Mania. Because to me, the Rumble and WrestleMania are kind of linked.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't as much back then, but to me they were or are.
Business backs up your assessment there, Justin, because business, maybe it's not fair to just pin it all on one thing because Hogan left, obviously, and there was a lot of backstage drama in 1992 in the WWF, but business collapsed after WrestleMania 8. And Meltzer has written numerous times how the money was in Savage chasing Flair for the title. Once kind of Savage beat him for the title, and you watch that TV, you can watch the Superstars. It's all on the network. The heat is gone, man. I mean, the world title program is almost persona non grata on television for about a month after Mania, which is no good. But, with Flair, piggybacking off something Ryan said earlier, it is, in my opinion, without question, the greatest individual effort in a Rumble. Hands down. He is the focus of the entire match. Guys who are dead in the water like Kerry Von Erich and Greg Valentine come into this thing in 92. I mean, they're not doing anything, those guys in 92. And for like 2 minutes, you think it's 1982 again.
Well, no,
they're working with Flair.
Giving Flair all that praise, don't you? I mean, I think you lose a lot if you take away Heenan from commentary. I mean, I think that might be 50-50 with Flair and Heenan.
I don't know about 50-50, but yes, Heenan's, I think in terms of commentary enhancing a match's greatness, I'm not sure there is a more shining example than Heenan and Monsoon in that match.
Yeah.
I just don't. I mean, because Heenan just like cheering and being very much a part of the match. Completely helps it out. So, okay, we're all in agreement 92 is the best Royal Rumble of all time. For God's sake, we did a Ric Flair draft and Justin picked it number 1 and I was mad.
Yeah,
that should tell you all you need to know. All right. So I think a very interesting question. This is going to be our first question of the night. And it's something that I have spent days upon days studying for this podcast. Rewatched 6 Rumbles in the last 6 days.
Oh my God.
To do this.
It's awesome. Amazing.
What is the second best Royal Rumble in history? Would anyone like to start the proceedings?
Well, okay. I wasn't able to rewatch as many as I would have liked. But man, it's probably too high, and there's certainly recency bias. But looking at it, like I kind of got like a top 8, and I really want to say 2020 might be number 2 for me. I mean, it's got the whole shebang. It's got a great narrative throughout the match. It's got one of the all-time surprise entrances in Edge, and it's got a meaningful winner who, it made Drew McIntyre, because he went on to win at WrestleMania, and he's basically been the world champ for the entire year. And shocking with how many Royal Rumbles there's been. That hasn't happened very many times where they've actually used the Rumble to make a guy.
Okay, can I want to go back to Justin, Ryan, before I forget this point,
Yeah.
because he's mentioned this twice now, and it's another question I want to ask both of you. What do you look for in a Rumble? Like, what makes a great Rumble to you? Justin has mentioned now twice the link that it has to WrestleMania. Is that something, Justin, that matters to you? Like, hey, this guy won the Rumble. How did he do the rest of the year? Does that affect how you grade a Royal Rumble?
1000%, because I really liked 2018, but then, Shinsuke went on to kind of have a boring feud with AJ that was just all them punching each other in the dick.
Listen to those shows in the archives. Yeah.
A lot of dick punching.
Oh.
So yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of great Rumbles out there that have guys that went on to lose at Mania, but they were still great Rumbles. I mean, you look at Cena in 2008. That was a good Rumble with a great Cena surprise, but his Mania match was kind of meaningless. And yeah, I think it does hurt the Rumble because it is tied to Mania. The winner goes on to main event.
Yeah, well said. I think I factor that into mine as well. Like the legacy of the match, as far as it has to be tied to be memorable to WrestleMania. Usually, now again, '92 was a little bit different because it was for the title. But yeah, I look for like a good performance out of the winner for sure. I look for that Mania link, maybe memorable interactions during the match. Like of course the McIntyre Lesnar thing last year was freaking awesome. Remember when at the beginning of last year's Rumble, how, with Brock eliminating everybody, people were kind of shitting on it for a while. And then as it went on and went on, at least on social they were. But then as it went on, it was like, well, it's unique though. And they're probably setting up something big. And people started to realize it was probably going to be with Drew. And I mean, they played it perfectly. I would agree with Justin. This one immediately came to mind to me as one to consider. The other ones I had on my list, or I'll just do one other one. And I've thrown this one out in our group text, but the 2004 Rumble. Now I need to go back and watch it. I did not go back and watch it, and I know Kyle, you've kind of said it hasn't aged as well, maybe. But at the time, I remember saying to myself and saying to friends, and maybe even to Justin at the time, that the 04 Rumble was like, I thought the second best Rumble, clearly to that point in time. And I thought with Chris Redacted, as we like to say on this program, I thought him winning was very memorable. It was one of those things that like hardcore fans loved to see. Justin, you threw out in our text earlier today about that being, a time where the company booked towards what the hardcore fans were really wanting to see. And then you have his title win at Mania. Now, of course, it's been tarnished by what ended up unfolding 3 years later and the tragedy there. But I loved the 2004 Rumble at the time. So some of this is nostalgia, and me looking back on it in that fashion. But 2004, and yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I 1000% agree with you. I would have to go back and rewatch it, but not having done that, I probably would have said that would have been probably an almost easy number 2 for me. But I still think it might be one of the, if not the best final elimination in Rumble history.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just hard to put it in any kind of list considering.
Yeah, they built that well when him getting Big Show out of there. How they did that was very well done. Circling back to the question I asked you guys, what do you look for? That Mania link certainly plays a factor. What did the winner go on and do? Was it something that affected the promotion moving forward? Obviously, Drew McIntyre, like Justin mentioned, went on to win the title at WrestleMania. He has been basically the champion ever since, except for the cup of coffee Randy Orton had. This might be very simple, but I think it's really something that needs to be drilled home. I want to be entertained with a variety of stories for 60 minutes. I think you look at a lot of these more modern Rumbles, and it's just a steady stream of people coming out. I mentioned this on the pod a few weeks ago, I believe, where, someone once got very upset at me when I mentioned, I liked it better when Pat was booking the Rumble.
Yeah.
And, they didn't take that too well. But, Pat used to have, it'd be very segmented and, there'd be stuff. And it's easy to remember. There's one Rumble that, actually has the highest rating at Cage Match, 2007. Okay, and that Rumble, I think everyone remembers, and rightly so, for the closing sequence between Shawn and Taker. But that was one of the ones I rewatched. Man, is there a lot of nothing happening in the first 45 minutes of that match. It's just kind of guys filling up. And yeah, the closing sequence is great. It was the first Rumble where number 31 and, Undertaker with his streak, that was a big deal. Him winning the Rumble and going on to Mania to challenge for a title. But, there's a lot of dead air in the first 45 minutes of that. So that's why that's like not my number 2 pick. As much as I don't want to pick anything modern, 2020 does have a legit argument to the number 2 spot. Its uniqueness, and I mentioned this to you, the both of you, I think when we were talking over the weekend, the whole deal with Brock is great. If you don't like that, you're actually just wrong. Like, I just don't know what to say. Like, there's never been anything else like that in another Rumble where one guy controls the ring to that degree. And you're right. By the time he gets eliminated, I mean, that reaction Drew gets is huge, and that's what you want. And man, I know there's Brock fatigue is a real thing in this last couple of years, but you go back and watch that match and seeing a star portrayed as a star. It's crazy when you watch that and you watch WWE TV now on a weekly basis, just a year later. So it has an argument. 2004, Ryan, you mentioned at the time, probably the second best Rumble ever. I would agree with that. Meltzer, his review just went up on F4W Online today, or a couple days ago, as a matter of fact. And in his review, he said this was probably the second best Rumble of all time. And that's the way I felt at the time. Now, you talk about how you grade Rumbles. I think what happens with Chris Benoit has to affect your viewpoint of that match. More so almost than any other Benoit match, maybe besides the Mania Triple Threat. Where it's like the feeling of joy that a lot of us had is kind of not there.
Yeah. I
think that's a very fair statement to make. Pros of that match still, I went back and watched it, is it sets up 4 Mania matches, which is damn impressive. I don't know if there's another Rumble that's done that. 4. It sets obviously Benoit in the main event, Lesnar Goldberg, because Lesnar interferes and attacks Goldberg. Undertaker Kane, it's the first tease of that, the return of the dead man. And Foley Orton, which is the highlight of the match. Foley's return to kick Randy Orton's ass is absolutely the highlight of that match. So that's in the discussion. 2008, Justin mentioned it. I just rewatched that like an hour before we started doing this podcast. The Cena surprise is an all-timer. And I actually think the closing sequence of that rivals 07. And it's more entertaining the first 45 minutes. So 08 to me is a better Rumble than 07. But a Rumble that I keep coming back to that not a lot of people talk about. I don't know if it's the second best Rumble, but it's damn sure the most underrated Rumble is 2005. I watched it back to back with 04, and they're pretty close. But 05 just comes out slightly ahead for me. I watched it back to back with my buddy Chad, and he was like going in like, oh, there's no way that's as good as 04. And when it was over, he's like, yeah, I think it is better than 04. And, I don't know the last time you guys watched this match, but there is so much like cool stuff going on here. The Daniel Puder hazing segment is an all-timer. I know Daniel Puder, you talk about a cup of coffee. I met Daniel Puder, by the way. I could tell you a great story about him.
Did you take him down?
No, he was much tougher than me. Still believed he could have taken down Kurt Angle too. But, look, a lot of people will call that hazing, with Benoit, Guerrero, and Holly just beating the shit out of him and just chopping him all down. A lot of people say that's mean-spirited. It's hazing. I call it entertaining. I think it was absolutely fantastic. And the Raw SmackDown brand split gets over. The Muhammad Hassan elimination is an entertaining bit. You get the beginning of the Angle-Michaels feud in that match. Edge is a great anchor. Edge, who had a breakout 05, is a great anchor in that match. And then it comes down to the 2 future stars, Batista and Cena.
Yeah.
And I know some people want to criticize that they botched the finish. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't know that was a botch until years later. with them both going over.
Yeah.
I just thought they were protecting Cena, and I think it adds to the match. So to me, it's one of two. It's either 05 or last year is the second best Rumble. I'm having a hard time deciding. But, I just watched 08, and I don't think it's as good as 05 or 04.
It's interesting. Both of them, last year and 2005, kind of the jumping off point for Drew McIntyre and Batista. That was literally the start for both those guys.
Yeah, and Batista, man, people forget how just red hot he was and how great that storyline was. With you could see it coming. Everyone knew it was coming. That he was going to ditch Evolution. But again, not to circle back to today's manure that we're given, but why surprise elements can be overrated sometimes. We all knew Batista was going to eventually turn and he was going to choose Triple H to challenge him. But the way they made you wait for it and executed that turn with the contract signing, that moment, man, is so good. When Flair and Triple H think they've got him and they're giving him the thumbs up, especially Nate with that big grin on his face. And Batista's giving him the thumbs up back, and then he just goes, and the crowd goes ape shit.
Yeah.
Dude, that was a well done storyline. And there's a lot of stuff in 05. I could get into it. I know we have a poll. It was my contribution to that poll for Patreon. And I would love to go over that show in full detail. I think it might be the second best Rumble.
To your point about 2005 and Batista, it just kind of popped in my head. In January 05, I turned 21 years old and was going to the bars a lot. And probably like you guys, when you go out with your friends that are wrestling fans, you end up, by the end of the night, talking a lot of pro wrestling loudly at the bar. And when I think back to the year that I was 21, going to the bars every single week, my good buddy Jeremy, who was a big wrestling fan, we talked about Batista all the time. I just it just pops in my head thinking about those nights out, and my buddy Jeremy was always talking about Batista in 2005. He was the thing, man. He was so over. To your point, it's that is one to revisit. I think I say this sometimes on the pod that you always say something, Kyle, that makes me want to watch something while I'm editing the show afterwards. I think the 2005 Rumble is what I'm going to be putting on tonight because it's a good one.
Something that needs to be said with Batista and just how hot he was at that time period. That Mania did unbelievable business. The only Manias that have done better in terms of pay-per-view buys were 17. And then the ones where they bought celebrities like Trump, Mayweather, or The Rock, when The Rock was a celebrity and no longer, I consider The Rock's appearances 27, 28, 29. That's a celebrity appearance. Mm-hmm. To me. So, they did it with an actual storyline, doing over 1 million buys. You just don't see that anymore. People were very invested in that storyline. And there's just a lot of good stuff in that Rumble. And it's not one I see mentioned in the discussion for number 2. It has a strong cage match rating. I was very pleased to see that. And I think you can make the argument it's number 2.
Sorry, real quick. One more fun little tidbit, although not as fun now, about 2005. It started off 1 and 2 with Eddie and Redacted, the two guys who finished WrestleMania 20 together.
Yeah, and they are great anchors. That's something too. We get back to this big picture question. What do we look for in a Rumble? It's really important who starts the match. I think that they, can anchor it for a while. And Chris and Eddie were great. Not just in that pewter segment, where Eddie's doing if you guys have never seen it, he's encouraging Holly and Benoit just to chop the shit out of pewter, and they're just hammering this kid. Blasting him with chops. And Guerrero's doing the Hulk Hogan thing to the crowd, oh, who's louder? They both do a really good job in that match.
All right, so our next one we have, Kyle, memorable Rumble wins. So when you think of the most memorable victories for you guys as a fan, where you were, I mentioned Benoit in 2004. It's hard for people who weren't watching wrestling at the time and only know Benoit for the tragedy. It's hard to get across to you how big it was at the time, because Benoit was kind of that internet darling that all the hardcores loved and wanted to see get that world title run at some point. and it was like years and years and years in the making. So if you weren't watching at the time, it's really hard to not justify it, but to get you to understand what it was like at the time. I mean, like when he won the title at WrestleMania 20, it was one of those things where like longtime fans had tears in their eyes watching it. Now, obviously, today we don't watch it in the same way, and it definitely takes away from his Rumble win now. But at the time, that was super memorable for me. You know, Justin, you talked a lot about Drew McIntyre last year, and for a lot of reasons, that's super memorable because it's the last big show with the crowd as we're here a year later. You know, with a crowd that big, a stadium crowd, I should say. Which it makes it, he got just such a huge pop that night in Houston. That's a memorable one. But as far as your fandom goes, Justin, what stands out for you as being some of the most memorable?
Well, as we've already kind of said, for me, it's, preferably it'd be the winner of a good Rumble match. That always helps. But it's the moment. Does it feel like the right person, or does it feel like a bit of a surprise, or what did it do for the person's career? And, as we've already talked about, Flair is up there and probably my top 3. Redacted would be probably an easy number 2 if he hadn't become a murderer. And besides that, I think Drew McIntyre's getting there. And another big one, you could look at HBK in 95, or probably would be number 3 for me, would be Austin in 97. He'd had the King of the Ring promo. He was coming off that Survivor Series with Bret Hart. Then he has this a really fun Rumble win, where he kind of underhandedly throw Bret's out, and he has one of the all-time great gifts in moments in Rumble history when he's sitting on the top rope looking at the watch.
Yes.
And then it leads into WrestleMania 13, which makes Stone Cold Steve Austin the icon that he was. So those are the big ones. You could also throw Becky Lynch 19 in there, but she was already kind of a big deal outside of that. But it did help her. Nakamura would be up there if he'd gone on to do anything, but that didn't happen. So the one other big one I'd throw in there, and it's one of the worst Royal Rumbles, but it's utterly unforgettable, and it's made the past 6 years, and it kind of made the wrestler until this past year, is Reigns in 15. You can put him in that same Batista and Drew McIntyre, where that Rumble, I wish you guys could see the face on Kyle Ross right now. For better or worse, it made him. Even if you just look at it as kayfabe, he won the Royal. He went on, got kind of screwed at WrestleMania, but he was a big deal from then on. He was a main eventer.
Go ahead, Kyle.
Okay. Flair, when I watched 92, that still gives me all the feels, man. When that finish happens, when Hogan's tugging on Sid like an asshole, and Flair comes from behind and dumps him, and Heenan just starts going, yes, 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 yes. I still mark out to this day when I watch that. But I want to piggyback actually off Justin. If you're looking at an individual performance or a memorable win, I think you've got to look to the only 3-time winner, Steve Austin, not just 97, but also 98 as well. I always thought there was, we could talk about what Benoit became. Obviously, we've mentioned it a number of times, but there was always a giant gap between 92 and 04 because Flair's performance in 92 is vastly superior to Benoit's in 04. There are times in the 04 match where Benoit just kind of disappears. And you see that a lot in modern Rumbles even when they have the guy go, someone like a Finn Balor in 2018. Yeah, they're in there the whole time, but they're not the focus of the match. Sometimes they're just, laying on the ground for a while. That's not the case with Ric Flair. Ric Flair is literally, again, the focus of the match the entire time. His individual performance outshines everybody. But Austin in 97 might be number 2. Because, that roster is not awesome at that point at all. And he carries that match until Bret Hart comes in. Mm-hmm. Carries it.
It was the most eliminations for a single guy until Kane in 2001.
Yeah, it was I think the second iteration of what I'll call the Diesel push. Diesel basically saved his job in 94 the way he was booked, and Austin did it, and he was getting over, man. You could feel watching that match the tide turning and the baby face turn on its way. You could just feel it watching that match. So, him winning, it's funny because he really didn't do a lot between King of the Ring and the Hart match at Survivor Series. He was almost kind of on ice.
Can you tell me who he wrestled at SummerSlam?
Yokozuna fell off the rope.
Oh, goddamn.
But
wasn't that a kickoff show match?
Yes.
Free for all or whatever?
So,
yeah.
Now, do you guys know the story of 97? Him winning. He was not supposed to win the match originally. But Vince Russo went on Livewire and blabbed that Bret Hart was going to win. And they changed it because of that. And man, did that change WWE history, I think.
Yeah. Because
if Austin doesn't win that match, I think he gets frozen out of the main event picture. And he may not, we know the original plan was not him and Bret at Mania. It was Bret and Shawn. And then, Shawn, forgets his smile. I think Austin was supposed to work like Davey Boy Smith, which I still don't know how they were going to get there. But that was huge. And then 98. You talk about feeling the tides turning. That promotion, how hot it got at the start of 98, when it appeared to be on death's door in the wake of Montreal, is stunning. And it's all Steve Austin. All Steve Austin. And, again, that's a match. The roster's weak. That matters in the Rumble. How strong is your roster going to the match? Because it's just 30 people running out, right? So if you have a lot of, jobbers, it's not going to get over. But, the roster's not strong. But Austin, everyone knew he was going to win. But it's an entertaining Rumble. So in terms of memorable wins, I would go with Austin those 2 years.
Yeah. And 97 was just such a complex thing because it led to, obviously, the Final Four match. The next month, it played into Bret's heel turn where he was pissed off about getting screwed. He quits the company on Raw.
The night after, yeah.
So, yeah, 97 does have to rank high. I think that's a good choice for sure.
I was really fired up when Shawn won in 95 a lot as a big Shawn Michaels fan, but that Rumble is just like a 30-minute. I talked about this in the Facebook group. God, you talk about a weak roster.
Yeah.
How about the confused crowd when the second Blue Brother comes out after the first one's been eliminated and they just think it's the same guy because they haven't been introduced on TV yet?
Yeah.
Who greenlit that?
Yeah, it's memorable because he went bell to bell, but and also I wasn't on the internet in 1995 and I was only kind of sparingly watching at that point, but Shawn was one of those guys that was like beloved by the internet too, so it was probably similar to like the Benoit thing where it was this guy that was kind of like the darling of the hardcore fans and he got this showcase to enter number one and actually won the Rumble, and I could see how that would rank high for people.
Yeah. I think with him, though, it was more of a formality that they made it pretty clear he was going to win. And I think him coming in number one and winning, remember, it was just minute intervals that year. That was their way to kind of ramp up some drama. It was a smart move, quite frankly, to do. But, with Benoit, as obvious it is in retrospect that he was going to win that match, you didn't believe it because promotions just didn't put over Chris Benoit.
Yeah,
put him in main events for WrestleMania. So, but it is a little bit similar in that regard.
So our next question here on the list: what Rumble winner would you change? Now, this was a tough one when I started thinking about this one. If you could go back in time and choose one of them, or at least one, maybe have a couple of. Who would you change winning the Rumble to somebody else? There was like two that stood out in my mind. I don't know if I want to go first again or not. I don't want to say both of them because it might take one of yours.
Can I ask a question? Because I wonder if it might be on both of yours.
Okay.
What is the worst part of 2015? Is it the fact that Reigns wins, or is it the way the match is laid out with Daniel Bryan getting tossed early?
Probably both. They were just, if they were going to go with Reigns, and not Bryan, it's just a no-win situation. That's number one on my list, by the way. I would go with Daniel Bryan for that Royal Rumble
in 15.
Yeah.
So I actually had on my list Bryan in 2014. That was the one that Batista won when he came back, and like the fans all wanted Bryan, right?
And he wasn't even in the match.
He wasn't even in the match. He lost to Bray Wyatt earlier in the card.
Apparently, they did not read the program that they were handed.
And it really screwed up Batista, who, you remember, they wanted to be a babyface, even though Batista wanted to be a heel when he came back, and didn't go over well at all. So I think you look at 2014, definitely both of them. You can make the case for Bryan.
Well,
but 2014 also stands out for me.
Yeah, I had considered 14, but I think the way that worked out actually added to the Daniel Bryan storyline. In hindsight, being 2020, it's like I actually don't want to change that. Now, the only thing I would change about that is you would have made Batista the heel who thinks he's a baby face, like the Hollywood guy. I think that would have been the way to go.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with Justin on 2014 that I think, as dumb as it was in the moment, 2014, I think Bryan being shafted out of even being in the match only strengthened him as a babyface, and maybe enhanced the story. With 2015, I am very adamant that the way the match was booked is worse than Reigns actually going over. And I'll make this comparison contrast for you. It's like if in 94, Bret Hart was tossed early and it just became obvious Lex Luger was going to win.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
but how could they have saved it then?
It's very simple. Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns should have been the last two guys. And even if Roman wins, the crowd's going to be pissed. But the reason the 2015 Royal Rumble is the worst Rumble, and it is the worst Rumble ever, is because halfway through the match, you have killed the audience and the match dead. I mean, the crowd, as soon as Daniel Bryan gets tossed, and I think he comes out fairly early.
Yeah.
You know it's over. You know who's going to win. The crowd doesn't want that person to win, and they literally spend 35 to 40 minutes booing a match. Name me another match in pro wrestling history where the crowd has shit on it for over a half hour.
This was Philadelphia, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, you just don't see that. I mean, it's one thing to have Reigns go over. It's another thing to have him go over like that. And again, I mentioned this on the show. Peel back the curtain a little bit. This is not something a lot of people have shared on the internet. Vince McMahon, I mean, think about what it takes to get Vince McMahon to apologize. He apologized to his creative team because that was his call. And I'm telling you right now, I'll swear on my grave, Vince McMahon apologized for the way that match was laid out to his creative team and said, you guys were all right. I was wrong. Oops. So
that's an exclusive here on Top Rope Nation. Don't believe that story has ever been told anywhere.
So you get, sorry, go ahead. I was going to move on.
I don't know if that's the thing is, though. That's on my list. I don't know if I necessarily change it because I think it's just the way the match was done that was worse than who actually went over. Although, I mean, you can make a pretty clear argument with the story of Bryan coming back. He should have gone over. And the fact that Reigns doesn't win anyway at WrestleMania kind of makes it seem even more silly.
Yeah.
And maybe I will just pick that one because 2016 and 2017 were my other options.
Mine too.
And here's the problem, though, and I'll throw it back to you. Who are your new winners? Because in my notes, I have anyone but Triple H, anyone but Randy Orton. But I can't center on an obvious alternative like Bryan in 2015.
I guess this is cheating, but for 16, I would have had the main event of the show be Reigns versus Triple H for the world title and have Reigns win. And then you have Lesnar win the Royal Rumble and you redo 31. Because 31 main event was a banger between Lesnar and Reigns.
I actually completely agree with that booking. That's absolutely the exact way I would have done it. Yes.
And if I continued my fantasy booking, it would have led to Triple H and Shane McMahon at 32.
Which would have been more logical than Shane McMahon and The Undertaker. Because I still don't know why The Undertaker would have cared that much about Shane McMahon having control of Raw. Still hasn't really been explained.
Maybe Shane McMahon's secretly a liberal.
Oh, hey-oh.
There's another exclusive. No,
I don't think he is.
no, I don't
Something
think so.
tells me.
I don't think so. Oh,
I know the ballot's secret and all, but I have a guess who Shane voted for in 2020 and 2016.
I'm surprised nobody mentioned 2011. I had 2011 on my list. Kyle, I think you mentioned earlier Del Rio winning the 2011 Rumble was atrocious.
Well, here's the problem with the 2011 Rumble. So 2011, 2016, I have them ranked as the kind of similar in terms. I think they're ill-conceived Rumbles. It's not that they're bad matches. I just think Reigns putting up the title in 2016 was dumb, and like how he disappears for part of the match. And then with 2011, look, you could do a 40-man Rumble in 2021 with the size of this roster, right? But when you talk about promotions with deep rosters, I don't think anyone ever mentions 2011 WWE.
Yeah.
Mason Ryan?
I'm looking at that Rumble with Del Rio winning, and then now if you change the winner to what I would propose, it's gonna domino effect. It's gonna change some other memorable stuff that happens. So you could pick someone else. But when you look at where CM Punk was at that point in his career, he was thinking about leaving the company. Obviously, he gets so frustrated. He has the pipe bomb promo later in the year, in the summer, and then has the memorable Money in the Bank match with Punk. But he was given a pretty top spot in that match. He's in the match, I believe, longer than anybody. I think he has the most eliminations in the 2011 Rumble. You easily could have had him win the 2011 Rumble and go on to work Edge at Mania, because Del Rio worked Edge at Mania 27. I think you could have done that. You had Cena and Miz was the other world title match, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. So probably Edge and Punk. That would have been a pretty good WrestleMania match. I would think a lot more memorable than Del Rio and Edge. So I think when you look at the winners of the Royal Rumble, like that Alberto Del Rio win just really stands out. Like, what the hell were they doing? Alberto Del Rio? Really? Like, I remember people at the time shocked too. It wasn't like in the moment it made sense. People were, why Alberto Del Rio?
He was one of those guys that it's just like, oh, he's going to be the next, Latin star. This is going to get, and I just never saw it. I know it's easy to say a decade later, but man, I just never saw it with Alberto Del Rio.
You know why it's even easier to say? Because he turned into a gigantic piece of shit.
Yeah, he's not a good person.
No.
He's not a good person.
Not a good person at all.
Second worst criminal record of anyone to win a Royal Rumble, I believe.
Fair. Yep. Fair.
I mean, it's a distant second, but
Yes.
again, there we go. So yeah, at 2011, was not good. It's funny because a lot of these I struggle who I replaced in 2017. Justin, I think you said you had that on your list to consider.
Mine's simple, and it's not really exciting. It's not exciting at all. I just would have had Bray win it instead of Randy.
Oh.
You could have still done that story with Randy winning at Elimination Chamber. And
what if you did a story where that storyline never happened?
I didn't love everything about it, but I've got a bit of a soft spot for that story.
I was in the building in the Citrus Bowl when worms appeared on the wrestling mat, and I said, "My God, I knew I've done drugs, but I didn't know they were this good."
Haunted your dreams ever since. Haunted your dreams.
Yeah. And the thing that makes it hard is
man.
that was one of those manias where there wasn't really a clear main event. Right? There was like 4 or 5 kind of co-main events.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, okay, you could have this person, but like, it doesn't really alter the trajectory. So like, I kind of struggled, choosing an alternative to Randy Orton. I just think like the idea of Randy Orton winning the Royal Rumble in 2017 was kind of bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the ones. Not surprising to me. All modern options that we went with for the who would you change. Is there any old one that you would look at that you might change?
I mean, we've talked about it, a handful of times, but I like your fantasy booking of WrestleMania 11, which would make Bret Hart the winner of that Royal Rumble.
Yeah, I mean that's massive fantasy rebooking.
Yeah,
So like I didn't even
yeah.
consider. Yeah. We mentioned 94. I don't, and Justin, you agreed with me in the text. I don't hate the tie finish in 94.
No, it's very memorable.
It may be one of the best bits of live market research Titan Sports has ever done. Because they didn't know who should be the babyface champion, Bret or Lex. So they had him tie, and they sat back and were like, all right, who's the crowd reacting to more? And it was Bret, and they made the right choice.
Yeah.
God, Bret selling the knee when he comes out
yeah.
is unbelievable.
Yes. Earlier in the night, working the Quebecers. PCO, Top Rope Nation alum. Check out that interview in the archives. Yeah.
That might be the best selling of a knee I've ever seen in pro wrestling. Bret Hart at that show.
Yeah.
When he because remember, like a couple spots earlier, no one comes out, and you're like, and Vince McMahon's like, that must have been Bret Hart.
Yeah, that's right.
He wanted to be in this so bad.
Yep.
And like Ted DiBiase, who a random commentator for that show, was like laughing, and then 2 spots later, Bret comes out, and the crowd just loses its shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like that.
I thought of one more. I think it's an important one. I think in 91, you got to go Tugboat eliminating Hogan to win the Royal Rumble.
Let me tell you something. I think I've said this on another podcast, and I'm going to stand by it. Okay. I think you basically do the 92 finish a year earlier. Hogan is Hogan. Tugboat is Sid. Randy Savage is Ric Flair. And Randy Savage wins that Rumble. And I think you do Warrior Savage as a title program at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
I like it.
I like that one too.
Chic Tugboat.
Yeah, Chic Tugboat. My God.
Yeah.
I can't believe the way Fred Ottman disrespected this country. Some people might want to mention John Studd in 89, but that's, the Rumble wasn't linked with Mania yet.
Yeah.
And John Studd did suck in 1989, like bad. But the plan was to push him. Whether or not you should have anticipated that John Studd would stink down the stretch is a discussion for another day. But
was Andre in that Royal Rumble?
He was eliminated due to his fear of snakes.
Oh yeah.
That fine storyline.
Yeah. All right, let's talk. Our last question here is the best non-Rumble matches in the history of the pay-per-view. And frankly, there's been a lot of them. There's been quite a few as I went through the cards and remembered some of these. And I'm sure almost all of them on my list are going to be mentioned. I think I've mentioned the first few things on the last couple. So I'll let Justin Joint have first at it. Let's just kind of keep going around the horn, mentioning one at a time. And this will probably go for a little bit.
I think possibly my single favorite non-Rumble match from the Royal Rumble is Triple H and Cactus Jack from 2000. It's just, we've talked about it 1,000 times. Just a fantastic match that probably more than anything else made Triple H.
It totally did.
Absolutely.
Triple H should be sending checks in perpetuity to Mick Foley for that match.
Yep, that was on mine. That was first on my list as well.
I think it's a 2-horse race between that match and Cena versus Umaga at 07.
Oh, wow.
I came across that one, you going through the cards, and that was the first thing that popped in my mind is you love that match. You've mentioned that before.
If Hulk Hogan ever had a great match in the classic sense, it would have looked like John Cena Umaga. The superhero overcoming the big monster. You get the same blood you get in Triple H Cactus, and the finish with John taking the ring rope, which has come undone, Shades of the Heart Foundation rockers, and choking Umaga out in the STFU while he's bloody is just so awesome. It's just such a great visual. Umaga's so talented. I think, he's someone who has sadly been, kind of just, his career was swept on the rug. He was so good in 2006, 2007. For God's sake, they used him in the Donald Trump match.
Yeah.
It's one of those two. It's really hard to pick between them. I think it's a 1A, 1B for me. There's a few other honorable mentions as well. I'm sure you may go through some of them, Ryan.
Yeah. As far as like a star rating match goes, you got to look towards Styles and Cena at 2017's Royal Rumble title match. I believe that was Cena's last World Championship victory.
It was.
Yeah, number 16. I mean, that's we're talking a year after Styles comes into the company, and here he is having a show-stealing match with the biggest, post Austin and Rock star in the company. There was a lot of people that Cena was kind of at this point working his way out of the company, but he has this just blow-away match with AJ Styles that really turned a lot of heads. How
good was AJ's first year in this company?
Yeah.
And how bland have the last four been?
Yeah, I mean that's the one that, as far as like recent history goes, that's one that stands out to me, for sure.
I'm surprised. There's one I just have it in my notes, not going to mention because Ryan is definitely going to mention it.
Bret Razor. That's on my list.
Oh,
no, not that one.
No.
I thought you thought because I'm a big Bret Hart fan, but
No, it's a match that I know you stand for before, rightfully so, and it would definitely be in my honorable mention.
Okay, can I say my number 2? Maybe that's it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
It'd be the triple threat: Lesnar, Cena, and Rollins.
That was the match I was just talking about. Yes.
Yeah,
from 2015. That would be my number 2.
I think with Chris Benoit morphing into Chris Redacted, to beat that over the head one more time, you could make the case that three-way from Rumble 2015 might be the best three-way in company history now. Because like I tried watching that Mania 23 way a couple years ago, and I'm just like, no.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned this, so I'll talk about it. Bret Razor, I know, is not like a match that's scored super high on the star rating scales by people, but I've always really liked that match. You've got
Wow.
Yeah, you got early Razor Ramon getting, his big push for the world title. You've got Bret Hart in his first championship reign at the time. That was one I used to watch the Coliseum video of like all the time. There's a memorable like suicide dive spot in the match, at a time when those didn't happen all that much to the outside. Like it's in the entranceway, I believe. I just always liked Bret Razor because I like both of those guys a lot. Obviously, Bret was my favorite wrestler growing up. I always really liked the Razor Ramon character too, and that was kind of like that early high point for him and big high profile world championship feud. So I figure because when you look at Bret Hart's Rumble matches at the Royal Rumble, I should say, like the 94 Rumble stands out, the 97 Rumble stands out, the match with the Quebecers with Owen in 94.
I love really that match.
Yeah, but as far as like a singles match, non-Rumble at the pay-per-view, it's him and Razor. And
what about him and Diesel 95?
Yeah, I like that match.
It's all right. I mean, I like the Survivor Series match they had a lot more. So that kind of takes away from it. Takes away from it for me a little bit. But I mean, that's the next one for sure. But I always felt like Bret and Razor was kind of underrated a little bit.
I think there's 2 match of the year contenders that we have not discussed yet. Jericho and Redacted from 01.
Ladder match.
There's another Redacted one.
Yeah, I know. God, this freaking guy, this damn Redacted. I remember, I think it was Between the Sheets. They were talking about Benoit, and at one point, Chris Zellner, one of the co-hosts of the program, just goes, "God damn it, this Chris Benoit was so good. Why? Why?" And then God bless it, Redacted and Angle in 03.
Yeah.
Is also like, I think of some of these we mentioned, that one might be lower than your Cena's and Styles, the Benoit Jericho, the three-way, and the 2 that I think are, either or, the Triple H Cactus and Cena Umaga. But I think those were the 6 that I had written down right there.
Yeah, I had 7 matches on my list. Again, the Bret Razor is kind of like a nostalgia thing, but as far as like in-ring, really high-level matches, those 2 Angle matches are freaking awesome. Or the one Angle match, Angle and Benoit, the 2 Benoit matches I meant, and then the Benoit Jericho match. But that Angle Benoit match in 03 was just like, I remember in the Observer, Dave really raving about it at the time, and Angle was like in the midst of the best in-ring work of his career around that time, and that match was like, that was up there like as the best, possibly the best match of his career at that point. So that was, it's hard to leave that one off. Angle Benoit 03, for sure.
A match you mentioned a few moments ago, Ryan, when we were talking about rebooking Rumbles, Daniel Bryan and Bray Wyatt is like really awesome.
Yeah.
Like that is easily the best match of Bray Wyatt's career. And then, you want to do a throwback, just a personal throwback. I don't think this really has a leg to stand on.
I was waiting for it. I think I know what you're going to say.
For winning this question. Rockers Orient Express.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
You compare it to the tag matches of that era, that were going on the NWA. Maybe it's nothing to write home about, but man, for a WWF tag match in that era, I mean, it's by far the best. Did
you say on Liam's pod that was maybe the best tag match in WWF history to that point?
As far as on TV,
yeah.
I think you could make the argument that it was. Whether it was something you could find on a house show that was better, that escapes my mind, maybe. But I mean, that was just the Rockers were doing stuff that you just didn't see on WWF television a lot. It's so weird. They're 91 because they were clearly at their peak, but they weren't really being pushed at all. And you could tell they were going to get broken up, midway through the year or something, or maybe 3/4 of the way through the year.
Did you guys consider Foley and The Rock at all from 99, or is it just because the violence and the headshots, you can't really put it up there? Because it was so memorable at the time.
I loved it at the time, but I'm not going to go back and rewatch that. I have no interest in.
From what we know now with head injuries, it's tough to watch.
True story. So it's funny. I have all these memories of watching these various Rumbles that I'm sure no one would care about listening to this podcast. But 99, I was at this freaking just Tool's house. That guy sucked. I remember I was very adamant. I wanted to just watch it in this girl I was dating at the time, her friend. I was like, hey, I'm just gonna freaking sit here and just watch it with them. And not an awesome. I think one buddy was gonna come over. I was like, I'm just gonna watch. And my one was like, no man, come over to this house. I'm like, I don't really freaking like that guy. That guy's kind of a freaking knob. And so but anyway, because I'm a freaking weakling, I acquiesced to go over to this person's house, and I just had a miserable time watching that pay-per-view. And the pay-per-view sucked. And I just I kind of just hate the 1999 Royal Rumble even more than most people, just because I just remember this. I can't remember the guy's name. He was just so shitty. Actually, I do remember his name, but I don't really want to talk about him. But yeah,
the 99 Rumble is freaking awful. Just
another ill-conceived. I'll say this: the first 2 minutes are red hot, and the last 2 minutes are red hot.
Yeah,
my God, those 50 in between ain't so good.
No, not at all.
Honorable mention match, just to get it out there for posterity. Reigns and Owens from 2017 was also really good.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I mean, shit. You think about that 2017 pay-per-view. If they could have just straightened out that Royal Rumble, that would have been an all-timer.
I actually don't think that Rumble's bad. But despite the fact that Orton wins and it kind of that's lame. But that's not a bad pay-per-view in terms of a top to bottom strong Rumble pay-per-view. 2017 is pretty damn good. You're right, because both title matches are excellent. What about that? What's the best Rumble pay-per-view? How about not in your format sheet, Tony? I'm going to throw that one out there to you.
Man,
I'd have
off
to
the
look
top
at
of my head,
cards.
I'm not sure.
2000, 2001?
2000 has the tables match. Is that right? The tag team tables match?
Yes, the first tables match, Hardy and Dudley's, and then Triple H and Cactus.
Yeah.
That was just loved at the time, and I don't know. 2001 is it's got Benoit Jericho, Triple H Angle as the title match.
It's probably 2000 or 2001. Just right now, I would go with. That's probably one of those.
I think it's going to be 2021.
Well, you know what? Owens and Reigns are probably going to have a hell of a match again at the Rumble this year, 4 years later. So,
is Owens just going to lose again?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that good booking?
I think so.
Nope.
Okay. Then I just, should he have won the title on Christmas SmackDown?
Yep.
I think he should have too, and would have set up a natural match. I mean, this whole we're going to dangle it's Adam Pearce. There was no reason to rip on WWE booking in the modern sense right now, but I'm going to do it because you opened that Pandora's box, somebody, and now I'm going to do it. What shit booking that was to do things like that with because you had this gauntlet match, which was allegedly to determine Reigns' challenger, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Adam Pearce wins in a screw job, which is pretty dumb. To be honest with you, I think that's straight out of the Russo-Ferrara playbook.
That's bad.
Yeah,
for newer fans, that's very bad. Yes.
Yeah, that's very bad. Is that good? No, it's bad. And okay, they didn't go with Adam Pearce, but he just changed to somebody who wasn't even in the gauntlet match. So you have really, again, reinforced something that WWE has done way too much over the past 10 or 15 years. Teaching your audience they should never invest in a match.
Nothing you see matters. Yes.
Yeah. You have this big match on SmackDown. Winner gets a shot at Roman Reigns, and nobody in that match is challenging Roman Reigns. That's just bad booking. And is nobody jumping up and down in the creative meeting saying this? I mean, I get it. You're getting paid well. You don't want to do it. But I always feel that that's why I would get fired very quickly if I worked at that job, because
I saw they had an assistant writer's position available or something. Kyle,
yeah, I mean, I would get real mad and stuff like that. I'd say, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Well, and people just look at me, and I'd be like Jim Cornette making fun of Kevin Dunn's buck teeth. Escorted out.
It's gonna be another one of those things where, like, we'll probably get on the air with our live show after the pay-per-view, and it'll probably be a pretty good show, like, as far as the matches go. And we'll say, yeah, these matches all delivered. But again, like, the TV and the story heading up really sucked. But they have, like, these good singular pay-per-views where if you kind of just watch them on their own, it's like, wow, there's all these good matches. But if you're watching television week after week after week, it just doesn't add up, really.
Yeah. And to circle back, maybe put a bow on it, whatever. That's why I think that 2005 really merits a look at number 2, is because I very much did like the product going into that show. I mean, Randy Orton as a babyface was pretty terrible. But other than that, I kind of did like it. And I guess maybe JBL was kind of shitty. He's the champion too. But, other than those two very large things, the win, you could feel the winds of change, and that the promotion was going to put some new people on top. And I always think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And they did. 2005 is the one year where business demonstrably went up over the previous year in the 21st century. There aren't many years like that, but 2005, they killed it for a good part of that year until they didn't.
So on our exclusive podcast or on the Patreon page, Top Rope Nation Classics, our monthly bonus podcast, it's either going to be the 2005 Rumble, the 2001 Rumble, or the 98 Rumble, depending on how our patrons vote over the next couple of days. We'll be recording that in the next few days after that. And next week on our main feed here, you will hear a preview of that show. If you want to hear the full show and all the Top Rope Nation Classics in the archives and all the bonus podcasts, there's over 20 of them. Patreon.com/Top Rope Nation. I'm looking forward to that, Justin.
I just want the listeners to know that if that poll ends up a tie, we're just going to watch 92 again.
Yeah. Last year, our Rumble month was a watch along with the 1990 Rumble, which was a lot of fun. I brought that up in our Facebook group the other day. But if you're a patron now and you haven't heard it, go back. I think that's the only. No, it was actually that one, and then we did the Memphis watch along with Derek a couple months after that. We've done 2 classics where it was live watch alongs, and those were a lot of fun. But this one's going to be a deep dive review. And I love doing those classic shows with you two, and I am looking forward to it.
Justin, I'm surprised you didn't call me out.
Uh-oh.
For 1992.
What do you mean?
Remember something I said I could do? I was pretty confident.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
We have to do this. Yes. We have to do this. All right. So, Kyle, do you want to tell our listeners what you kind of bragged about? I'm going to pull it up here.
Okay, so we're going to have to do this a certain way so the people on the video know that I'm not cheating. So I was talking about how much, confidence in Royal Rumble history. Hopefully that came out. Hopefully you listeners enjoyed this show. I enjoyed doing it. But I made the offhanded remark that I am fair. I've seen the 92 Rumble so many times that I am fairly confident I could list 30 entrants in order. And I was like, that'd be kind of a fun thing for the show. And Justin was all over it.
I'm jazzed. I am jazzed.
Do you have them pulled up on your phone? So you can...
I got them.
Okay, I was just going to do that.
Should I turn around so you know I'm not looking at
Yes,
the
you have to
computer?
turn. We're watching on the video stream. You guys can watch this on our YouTube page if you're listening to the podcast.
Well, but he needs the mic though. We need to hear him.
If you turn just to the side, we'll probably be able to
Oh,
pick it
that,
up.
oh yeah, hold on. I'll get my mic. Hold on, and then hold on one
This is going to be
second.
legit.
Yes.
This is awesome.
Oh god, I think I'm gonna. Okay.
The
Here we
Rain
go.
Man of professional wrestling. Here he goes.
Can you still hear me? Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I am looking not at my computer. What incredible rate. All right. So,
Number 1.
is the winner of the whatever Savafard Battle Royal, Davey Boy Smith.
That is correct.
Number 2, you cannot buy a number this year. It's Ted DiBiase.
You're never going to guess number 3.
Damn it! It's Ric Flair.
I'm going to be, I mean, obviously, if you have faith that you can do this, that you even thought that you would have a shot at this.
There's a couple spots where I might mix the guys up, and it's going to piss me off if I get it wrong.
Wow.
Number 4 is Jerry Sags. He's a 300-pound guy.
Wow. Yep, that is correct.
Number 5 is definitely Haku.
That is correct.
Number 6 is the freshly heel turned Shawn Michaels.
Ooh, very nice. Very nice.
Number 7. Ooh, it's El Matador.
That is correct.
He's making guacamole out of El Matador. Look at the tights. Bob Heenan would be canceled in 2021.
Yeah.
Number 8 is the Barbarian. He is not a hairdresser on his day off.
My God. Number 9.
Kerry Von Erich. It feels like it's 1982 all over again, by God, when he runs the ring. All right.
This is getting more impressive and pathetic by the minute.
Okay, I just heard a thing. Okay, the next 3 is a very hard one because I don't want to. It's the next 3 I know in some order is like Greg Valentine, the Repo Man, and Nikolai Volkov. And I cannot remember if it's Valentine Repo Man or Repo Man Valentine. It is. I'm going to go.
This is unbelievable.
I'm going to go Repo Man Valentine.
Oh, you make me fucking sick, dude.
Is that it?
That's correct.
Okay. Number 12 is Nikolai Volkov. It's not as Bobby Grill Monsoon goes. It's not going too well for those Lithuanians over there right now. And Bobby Heenan goes, who cares? The Big Boss Man is definitely number 13.
For our listeners, he has a child. Kyle Ross has had sex before. I just want to make that perfectly clear.
Oh my God.
Number 14 is the Power of Hercules.
That is correct.
Then we clear the ring in a famous segment. Flair flops, and Roddy Piper is number 15. The crowd goes apeshit. 16 is definitely Jake Roberts. 17 is Jim Duggan, who comes out to a frightening pop. Then let's go IRS, Jimmy Snuka, Undertaker. The listeners are waiting here.
Okay,
So
now that felt like a cheat. How can you just rattle off those 3?
Because IRS blows and is the low point of the match. Jimmy Snuka, I'm like, why is this man still here? And then Undertaker is 20 because he could only come in 20 or later.
Unbelievable.
Randy Savage is 21. Goes right after Jake. Does a freaking sets a new world record for the 40-yard dash. All right, now this is the next hard part.
Oh boy, these next 3. Oof.
22, I feel, is someone that is not good. I know 23 is Virgil because Bobby Heenan makes a very unfortunate joke about Virgil when he comes out and going through people's bags, which cannot be repeated in the year 2021. 22 is the Berserker.
Yep.
Right? Okay. All right. Now it gets dicey again because it's the guys before Hogan. Once I get these 3, I'll get it because I know the last 4. 24, there's Jobbers. It's people that are not going to win. Skinner is definitely one of them, and Gorilla buries him. Oh, Colonel Mustafa.
Jesus Christ.
Yep,
25.
Oh, Rick Martel.
Yep.
And then it's Skinner.
Nope.
What?
Oh no.
Wow. You made it all the way to 26.
Is it Hogan then?
It is Hogan.
And oh my God. So then it's Hogan, and then it's Skinner, Slaughter, Sid, Warlord.
Yes.
That's right. Wow. Incredible.
I get Hulk Hogan and mixed up with Skinner.
Hey, we'll take it. That was more
That happens
impressive.
all the time. Happens all the time.
Yes.
It's more impressive than anything we're gonna see at next Sunday's Royal Rumble, I think.
I lived entertained.
God. My God.
Unbelievable. Follow this man on Twitter at TRP
How the hell
Kyle.
did I get Hogan and Skinner mixed up? Oh,
It's all right, man. That was pretty damn impressive.
Kyle, is the 92 Rumble match your favorite WWE match of all time?
it's on the short list.
Okay.
It's on the short list. It would probably be top 5 for sure.
Unreal.
It's up there in terms of number of times I've watched it. Yeah, it'd be that or probably like Flair or Savage Steamboat. Those are probably the 2 matches I've seen the most times.
Wow.
Folks, that's
I'm
why he
impressed.
is the Wrestling Rain Man.
Yep.
Unbelievable. At TRP Kyle. Follow him on Twitter.
Impressed, horrified, ashamed.
I was like so fired up. I got the frickin' Repo Man, Valentine, Volkov trifecta, and then I frickin' blew Hogan Skinner. I can't believe it.
That's where I thought you were going to lose it because you'd said like 3 times Valentine first, but then you got that corrected.
Because, I was thinking when I said earlier in the show about like Valentine and Tornado rekindling old flames, old feuds with Flair. And so like it was stuck in my head, Tornado and Valentine. Gorilla really buries the Repo Man in that match. Didn't we talk about that on this Tuesday in Texas? Gorilla about super fucking hate the Repo Man.
Yep. He buried the gimmick.
Yeah.
Follow Justin Joint at Justin Joint, JOYNT. I am at Ryan Droste, DROSTE. The show is at Top Rope Nation. We are on Twitter. We're on Instagram, Facebook. Join the group. It's Top Rope Nation Pro Wrestling Discussion, the Facebook group. We are talking with everyone, all the listeners, each and every day. Fun place to talk pro wrestling. Would love to have you join us. And like I said, we'll have a preview of our classic show next week. And then, 2 days later, 2 days after that show drops, it will be our live post show of the 2021 WWE Royal Rumble. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/Top Rope Nation. Plan to join us next Sunday night as we get on the air live after the show goes off the air on the WWE Network. Justin, great to have you back tonight. Complete the trio. Yes, indeed. Hope you boys have a good weekend. I'm sure we'll be talking pro wrestling. I hope everyone listening has a great weekend.
Oh, that's the SummerSlam theme, isn't it?
I am definitely leading off this show with the classic Royal Rumble theme,
Okay.
so you'll hear it. Appreciate the support, guys. Tell your friends about Top Rope Nation. We'll be talking to you.
Tell your enemies.
Yes, them too. All downloads count.
Tell Skinner.
Yes. We'll be talking to you all next week. Have a great weekend. Take care.
Skinner?